Cartoon Saloon is an Irish animation studio that is known for various works such as Secret of Kells, Song of the Sea, and The Breadwinner, all of which have been said to be some of the best movies in their respective years, each of them having been nominated Best Picture, and all of them snubbed for that title. After 2017, they've gone quiet for a while, until in 2020, they released a handful of trailers for the upcoming film Wolfwalkers, coming to Apple TV+, and everyone was getting hyped for it. It was shown in film festivals, in theaters in November, and finally, it is out on demand as of the time writing this script. It proved to be a massive success, becoming the mildly definitive best film of Tom Moore's Irish animated films, despite what the atrocious box office returns might tell you. So certainly this is a film worth seeing, right? Indeed, yes. Which is why I'll be reviewing this movie with no substantial spoilers. However, if you want to go into the movie completely blind, click off this video and see it on Apple TV Plus for yourself. Otherwise, if you don't care for minor spoilers, stick around. By now you've probably seen or heard enough from other sources to know what this movie is about, but in case you forgot or just never heard of Wolfwalkers, let me lay out the scope of the plot. Robin and her father move into a castle town in Ireland from their original home in England. Her father is a proclaimed hunter driving wolves out of forest for the dictator authoritarian version of Claude Frollo. What's his name? Oliver Cromwell? Holy crap, he's based on an actual Oliver Cromwell? That's sick! Anyway, Cromwell wants to expand his land by cutting down the forest and starting farms, but what keeps getting in his way of his ambitious plans are rebellions and wolves. Meanwhile, Robin has various encounters with a girl named Meb, who appears before her one day as a girl and the next day as a wolf. Robin follows Meb into her pack and learns that wolfwalkers are not a myth and that they are real. People who are wolves when they're asleep and can use magic to heal by howling. The rest of the film is then focused on Robin and Meb facing literal growing pains, as well as finding Meb's lost mother before the wolf pack leaves in fear of the forest finally being cut down and Cromwell succeeding in his mission. Given my summary and what's been shown in the trailers, the story is relatively easy to guess, aside from one twist that happens at the end that is also subtly shown in the trailers, but that's at the fault of the advertising, not of the actual movie. Right now, I want to delve deeper into each component of the movie and give my thoughts on them. I've already said that the plot is relatively easy to guess, and even if it isn't, I'd say it's not exactly that complex, but as proven in other films, the simplest stories work as long as the characters are endearing, which this film does not forget. Each plot point is not exactly circumstantial, but are choices made by different characters. And yes, character-oriented stories are getting a little repetitive nowadays, but for this film, it works wonders. As for the lore, aka the wolf mythology, in comparison to other films jam-packed with riddles and gimmicks, Wolfwalkers is by far the best animated film this year in terms of explaining what works, how it works, and how it impacts the central story. It doesn't explain the origin of the Wolfwalkers, but as with every myth shown in movies, there doesn't really have to be an origin story for everything. I mean, I'm sure nobody bothered to explain what was going through the first dead person's mind when they entered the Land of the Dead in Coco, if those skeletons even had minds to begin with. I will say that this film ends a little too ideally, and at one point the plot relies on a particularly fickle story trope that involves lies and deceit, but those are really small problems in what is otherwise a fantastic story filled with easily comprehensible and well thought out lore detail. I've already made a joke about how Cromwell is basically a shadow of Judge Claude Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and if you don't know what I mean, let me explain the villain's motivations. So Cromwell rules the castle town but wants more land. He wants the forest gone, he wants the wolves gone, and he wants farms because money. And at any side of a revolt or rebellion, he puts an end to that instantly. Even if his motivations are a little one-note and simple, he's still shown to be a very serious threat. He is in complete control in every moment he's on screen. It's a little easy to say that he's a shadow to certain Disney villains. He's as power-hungry as Scar, as calm and controlled as Shan Yu, as greedy as Clayton, and as theologically driven into prejudice as Claude Frollo. Oh yeah, that last part is true. For all of the heinous dictator-like actions he's committing, there's an awful lot of talk from him about the Lord giving him power. He prays to the Lord like our main characters are devils. I haven't seen another villain in years that has been this blatant in his commentary on theologically driven self-righteousness as Claude Frollo. Aside from the animation, which I'll get to later, the characters are pretty much the best component of this lovely masterpiece, especially the two main characters, Robin and Mev. Their sisterly bond all throughout the movie is just plain adorable. If it weren't for a certain other pair of characters in animation, I'd say Robin and Mev have some of the best chemistry in their interactions in animation history. Robin with her self-proclaimed hunter fantasy antics accompanied by her calculated yet rebellious demeanor, and Mev with her wild beast-like recklessness and sass with her bratish behavior. These two characters and their friendship are the lifeblood of this movie. And while I'm not exactly a fan of the trope that we won't speak of here, it's executed quite well. Robin legitimately cares for Mev in that moment, inadvertently rebelling against discount Claude Frollo, but Mev storms off and does things her own way, being the stubborn brat she is. As for the side characters, they're kinda inferior to the main two, but still amazing, especially Robin's father, who's involved with a major development at the end. It's unnatural for me to not say anything about a movie's visuals when its visuals are this good. Aside from Violet Evergarden, Eternity, and the Auto Memory Doll, this movie has some of the best animation I've seen this year. I love the line work, the color scheme, the fluidity, the character designs, the backgrounds, the fire, and just so much more that I can't even list. Each frame when our characters are in the woods is just so warm and familiar, I just feel like jumping into any pile of leaves that I see are on screen. And that in contrast with the dull, muddy look of the city is just nigh perfect. The shift between such a vibrant environment and a gloomy, generic living space, I love that. But how can I talk about the visuals without talking about that one nighttime scene where our two lovely wolves are running through the woods? Because that scene is just a spectacle that it may as well be one of the best scenes in animation history, especially when Aurora's Running with the Wolves is playing in the background. And I do love me some good underrated Aurora music. Speaking of music, the soundtrack is really good. From being nicely atmospheric and setting up the tone, having familiar leitmotifs that are clearly the theme of the movie, and being climactic and truly epic when the adrenaline-spiking, visually immersive animated scenes kick in. True that it's not as equally as impressive as the visuals aesthetic, it's still pretty darn good. In conclusion, I wouldn't say Wolfwalkers is the single best animated film of all time, though it is one of them, but I think Wolfwalkers is the single best animated film of 2020. Unless Soul actually subverts my expectations and turns out better than WALL-E, which I know for a fact that it will not be better than that beautiful spectacle. Wolfwalkers is such a delightful cinematic experience, from the wolf mythology lore detail to the intriguing original plot, to the lovable and adorable complex characters, to the very exceptional soundtrack, and most importantly to the visually striking animation. I give this movie a solid 10 out of 10 for being a spectacular masterpiece of an animated film. If you're late to the Tom Moore Irish Animated Film Party and want to see Wolfwalkers later, I'd recommend Son of the Sea for you. It is possibly his weakest film, but even that's saying something when it's still pretty good. For those of you who are running out of CG films to see, I'd recommend Onward. Yes, it is worse than this, but it tells a lovely brotherly bond story. Go see it. Anybody new to anime? The Girl Who Leapt Through Time can introduce you to the most wonderful and spectacular things overseas projects can do. And finally, Silent Voice. I'm gonna keep recommending this movie until the day I die. So, what did you all think of Wolfwalkers? And if you haven't seen it yet, are you looking forward to it after this review and going to see it on Apple TV Plus? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. And be sure to give a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It takes hours to make these videos, whereas it only takes a few minutes of your time to do those 4 things. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and see you in my Violet Evergarden review!